There are 8 cards in Clash Royale which casual players find broken, but pros, they actually laugh at these cards. In this video, we'll understand why casuals fear these 8 cards, but pros consider them trash. So, starting off the list, we have the Electro Giant. This card has received significant hate from the community over the years. But why? Well, the issue with Electro Giant is its mechanics. Casuals find it difficult to counter him because he destroys any close-range troop by himself. A lot of casual players suck at building their decks, so they don't even include any buildings or ranged cards. If your deck doesn't have such cards, of course you'll have a hard time against the Electro Giant. What casuals will do is just stack their troops together to try and kill the Electro Giant. This, obviously, is a stupid play. The Electro Giant reflects back damage, and your troops will be wiped out if you place them close to him. This automatically makes medium damage troops and swarms a bad choice against him. So, what can you do to counter him? Pros find it easy to counter the Electro Giant because they run a variety of ranged cards and buildings. Use a building to pull away the Electro Giant and use a ranged card to deal damage to it. Make sure you place the building and the ranged card far away from each other. Electro Giant decks run lightning, and if you place your cards close to each other, lightning can destroy them easily. So, force your opponent to choose what card to drop his lightning on. Additionally, heavy damage dealing troops like P.E.K.K.A, Prince or Mini P.E.K.K.A do quite well against the Electro Giant too. Fisherman is a very underrated card to counter the Electro Giant. He can pull the Electro Giant towards the King Tower, which can be a game-changing moment. Here's an interesting thing. We know that Electro Giant is actually bad in this meta. Still, he has a 48% win rate on regular Trophy Road. But when it comes to the top 200 players, that win rate drops to 43%. This clearly shows how pros are able to counter the Electro Giant pretty easily as compared to casuals. But wait, these stats get even more unbelievable for our next card on the list. The next card casuals complain about the most is the Hog Rider. I'm not trying to say the Hog Rider is a bad card by any means or whatever, but the way casuals exaggerate about this card, you would think he has the hit points of a Golem and damage of a P.E.K.K.A. It's annoying to hear these complaints because the Hog Rider is actually the most balanced win condition in Clash Royale. Ever since 2017, he hasn't received even a single balance change. This is quite remarkable for a win condition, to be honest. You know what else is considered remarkable? Smashing that like and subscribe button. It's not like the Hog Rider is way too difficult to counter. I mean, there are a lot of cards you can use to counter him. Buildings counter him easily, Tornado shuts him down, heavy damage troops like Mini P.E.K.K.A and the P.E.K.K.A can prevent him from getting any shots on the tower. Swarms are effective too, as long as your opponent doesn't have a spell in cycle. Some cards I'm gonna reveal further are great counters to the Hog Rider as well, especially the number 1 card. Apart from those, some of the best evolutions in the game actually hard counter him too, like the Valkyrie and Cannon. With so many counters, it's really unfair to say that the Hog Rider is a broken card. For instance, Hog decks are rarely dominant in the meta. They are consistent, but not dominant by any means. If you look at the stats of the Hog Rider, the difference between the pros and casual is massive. On regular ladder, the Hog Rider has a use rate of 23%, with a win rate of 54%. But on the other hand, in top 200 ranked ladder, the use rate falls down to 9% and the win rate declines to 49%. This is a clear indication that casuals overrate the Hog Rider a lot. He is not a tough card to counter on his own. But if I'm being real, the problem is not really with the Hog Rider, but with a card that is paired with him a lot. And that card happens to be next on our list. The next card mid-ladder players find the hardest to counter is the Firecracker. So, from what I've seen, the players who complain the most about the Firecracker are the ones who don't run arrows in their deck. And I do understand that without arrows, she can be a really annoying card to deal with. But here's the thing, more than often, it's because of a player's own mistakes which allows the Firecracker to get insane value. For example, if you're dumb enough to not space out your cards, the Firecracker can literally wipe out all your troops instantly. Her burst damage is way too high, which is why you want to avoid placing troops close to each other at all costs. The evolved Firecracker is even more annoying because her sparks continue to deal damage for some extra seconds. Secondly, a lot of players miss an opportunity to activate their King Tower with a Firecracker. I mean, why would you not do that if you get the chance? And finally, players will place their troops right in front of their towers despite knowing that the opponent has a Firecracker. Of course the opponent will be able to get burst damage on your tower by placing the Firecracker on the bridge then. I personally hate the Firecracker and find her extremely annoying, but I do think that in most cases, the reason you're losing against Firecracker decks is because of your dumb plays and not the Firecracker herself. I mean, the evolved Firecracker has a 9% use rate on ladder with a 46% win rate on regular ladder. But in top 200, the card sucks. It has a nearly 0% use rate. If you're having trouble against the Firecracker, perhaps you need to adapt your gameplay style against her. And most importantly, you need to have some sort of counter in your deck for her. What deck are you running in Clash Royale right now? The next card that is most hated by the casuals are the Elite Barbarians. Every time I see someone crying about how broken Elite Barbarians are, I can't help but laugh. The card costs 6 elixir. 6! And it can be easily countered by countless low elixir cards. Therefore, you're basically always going into a negative elixir trade if you play them. How is that broken? The hate for overleveled Elite Barbarians is justified. But if they are of a similar level as your cards and you're still losing, then you just suck. They are easily countered by swarms, heavy damage dealing units, and then can be easily distracted. A very common mistake I've seen players make versus Elite Barbarians is that they use the same counters for them again and again. This can make it really easy for your opponent to predict your counters with a spell, so always keep changing the way you counter the Elite Barbarians and also where you place your units. This will ensure you don't get a prediction spell dropped on your units right away. Always look for positive trades to counter the Elite Barbarians and be cautious of what spells your opponent is using. Elite Barbarians on defense can kill your push quickly, so you need to make sure you have enough support behind your tanks. Drop a big spell on them if necessary, and if you're playing a cycle deck, your main job should be to outcycle them as much as possible. On regular ladder, the Elite Barbarians have a 5% use rate and a 52% win rate, but only 2% of the decks in the top 200 feature the Elite Barbarians, and they have a weak win rate of 48%. Clearly, pros know that the Elite Barbarians suck, and they're just too easy to counter. In fact, they are countered by our next overrated card on the list. The next card mid-ladder players love to glaze is the Witch. Now, I'm not talking about the evolved Witch, because, well, she's kinda okay, but the regular Witch, she's just terrible. Her skeletons get wiped out instantly by small spells, and she herself is vulnerable to spells. For a 5 elixir card to be this weak against spells is just unfair. The reason why casuals find her broken is because they use a ton of single target cards like Prince, Mini P.E.K.K.A., Elite Barbarians, etc. Casuals will use these cards because they are attracted by how much damage they deal, but these cards hit slow and are very easy to take care of. The Witch is a big counter to such cards because of her continuous spawning of skeletons. If you're running single target cards, you always need to pair them with spells. Because if you don't, you're 100% losing to the Witch. Then don't come crying to Reddit and complain about the Witch being overpowered. She's nowhere near broken. In fact, she's one of the worst cards in the game. On offense, she is no threat. Her damage is low and her skeletons are useless. On defense, she gets taken out by spells which also damage your tower. For 5 elixir, cards like Executioner or Archer Queen do a much better job and fare better against big spells. To be honest, the amount of players that use the Witch is just insane to me. Despite her being so terrible, over 16% players use her on regular ladder, and she has a 54% win rate. But amongst the top 200 players, she has a less than 1% use rate and only a 46% win rate. The difference is actually unreal. Mid-ladder players need to stop using the Witch so much. But if there is one card that people glaze even more than the Witch, it's the next card on our list. The next card casuals love to complain about the most is the Wizard. For some reason, casuals glaze this card like no other. According to them, this is the best card in Clash Royale as it can counter literally everything. Do you know how many many players use the evolved wizard on regular ladder? 17%! But in top 200? Not even 1% of the players use them. Why? Because it just outright sucks! For 5 elixir, you're getting a unit that does decent splash damage, but is also fragile, that a simple fireball and poison can wipe him out. If you see someone complaining about the wizard, it's most likely because they placed 10 elixir worth of troops at the same spot, and the wizard just destroyed them single-handedly. You see how dumb that is? And as dumb as this may sound, I can assure you that a vast majority of casuals make this mistake. If you know that you're facing heavy splash damage dealing cards, why on earth would you group your troops together? The wizard is a troop which becomes the best card in the game if your opponent sucks. But if you face even a half-decent player, you're completely cooked. Think about it. He sucks against most win conditions. He slows down your cycle because he costs a whole 5 elixir. Why even use him when other ranged cards like Musketeer, Ice Wizard, Magic Archer, or the Executioner just do his job better? On defense, he provides free spell value and literally gets countered by 4 elixir spells. On offense, let's just say that if you're letting a wizard get a shot on your tower, then your defense is just terrible. The wizard would have been the most hated card amongst the casuals, if it weren't for the next card on our list. Next up, we have the regular Mega Knight, who, without doubt, is the most hated card amongst casuals. Not a day goes by without someone complaining about the Mega Knight on social media. And it's really funny to me because the regular Mega Knight is one of the easiest cards to counter in Clash Royale. Once again, the reason why casuals find it overpowered is because it destroys their push instantly. Well, obviously it will, if you squish all your troops together. If you know your opponent has a Mega Knight in cycle, perhaps just be patient and not rush in on offense. One of the biggest issues mid-ladder players face is to counter the Mega Knight on defense, and a lot of it comes down to bad placements. To counter the Mega Knight on defense, your best chance is to pull it towards the center using a mini-tank so that both your towers can target him. Mini-tanks like Knight, Valkyrie, and Mini-P.E.K.K.A. can easily shut him down on defense. Buildings do fine against him, but don't rely on them alone. You can also use a mini-tank plus ranged card to counter him, and obviously heavy hitters like P.E.K.K.A. or Prince are great counters to him. While I agree that overleveled Mega Knights can be a lot harder to counter, remember that with proper card placements, you should be able to deal with him. He's incredibly weak on his own, which is why pros hardly use his regular version. Mostly, you will always see them running the evolved version. The regular Mega Knight has a horrible 36% win rate in top 200 ranked, but on regular ladder, his win rate skyrockets to 56%, which clearly shows how casuals find it difficult to counter him. And as the most overrated card amongst the casuals, we have the Skeleton Army. 20% of casuals use this card, and I'm unable to understand why. It gets countered by every small spell, you literally have better options in guards and goblin gang, and you're still using the Skeleton Army? If you are running the Skeleton Army in your deck, that's a clear sign that your deck sucks. But do you know that there are 20 other signs which can reveal whether your deck is actually good or not? To know about them, click on this video.